of breath. Oh, lame. Breathing is one of the things that we take for granted every day. But what most people don't know is that it is a very complex process. So now, folks, the question is, how do we breathe? Let's ask a few people how they think breathing works. And breathe. Oh, how do we breathe?
You suck in the air and you breathe it out.
How do we breathe? Well, you breathe through your nose or your mouth. Inhale or exhale. How do we breathe? Well, you inhale, you get in a ton of oxygen, and then that replenishes the blood cells in it, and then when you exhale carbon dioxide, which is bad. Alright, it looks like we need to look at the paper trace behind how we really breathe. The respiratory system is what guides the person to breathe. The overall function of the respiratory system is to supply the blood with oxygen in order for the blood to deliver oxygen to all parts of the body. When we breathe, we inhale oxygen and exhale carbon dioxide. This exchange of gases is the respiratory system's means of getting oxygen to the blood. But what organs are involved in breathing? What organs are involved in breathing, you ask? Well, the respiratory system is broken down into two types of respiration: external respiration and internal respiration. External respiration, also known as breathing, involves the use of organs such as the nose, pharynx, epiglottis, larynx, trachea, lungs, bronchus, bronchial, heart, alveoli, and diaphragm. Here is a complete location of all the organs together in the respiratory system. In the nose, mucous membranes warm and moisten the air that passes through to help prevent damage to the tissues in the respiratory system. The pharynx is a part of the throat that begins from behind the nose to the beginning of the voice box and the esophagus. It acts as a passageway for air and food. Below the pharynx is the epiglottis, which covers the opening to the air passage. Basically, if the air passage is open when swallowing, air can enter the stomach and food can enter the lungs. And that is how the epiglottis acts as a lid every time we swallow. The larynx is a short tube in the throat located below the epiglottis and prevents choking and allows you to speak. Right below the larynx is the trachea, a 4 to 5 inch windpipe that allows air to flow between the larynx and bronchi. The lungs are below the trachea and take in oxygen during inspiration and release carbon dioxide during respiration. The bronchus, right below the lungs, conducts air into the lungs. The smallest version of the bronchus is the bronchiole. The heart pumps oxygen-rich blood to every living cell in the body. Alveoli are tiny pockets in the lungs that store food for a short amount of time for oxygen to be absorbed into the bloodstream. Last but not least, the final organ involved in breathing is the diaphragm, which helps more air to be held in the chest and then causes air to go into the lungs. How are the lungs able to take in air? Well now, air is taken into the lungs by a process known as inspiration. When you take a deep breath, the muscles around your ribs get smaller, making the ribs go upward and outward. The diaphragm flattens and pushes down on the abdomen, and the muscles in the abdomen relax. The thoracic cavity or chest cavity gets bigger. Therefore, this makes the air pressure lower in the chest cavity. The air pressure outside the body is higher than the air pressure inside the chest cavity. This allows the air in the atmosphere to move into the lungs. Oh, so all of that is when we inhale or breathe in. But what about when we breathe out? Well now, when we breathe out, that is called expiration, which is the exact opposite of inspiration. The diaphragm and rib muscles relax and the stretchy tissues of the lungs are drawn back, emptying out the air in the lungs. The chest cavity gets smaller and the air pressure outside the body becomes less than the air pressure inside the cavity. Air then goes out of the lungs until the pressures inside and outside are the same again. Oh, so external respiration is the truth behind how we really breathe. But I thought there was a second type of respiration. Yes, you're right. The other type of respiration is called internal respiration, which is the exchange of gases between the blood and the cells of the body. What exactly happens during internal respiration? Good question. First, when air moves into the lungs, the oxygen in the air moves across the alveolar membrane and walls of the capillary and then enters the blood. Carbon dioxide, the gas we exhale, moves across the capillary walls and alveolar membrane and then enters the alveoli. This is the opposite direction of oxygen. But is there a difference in how much oxygen and carbon dioxide is carried? Yes. Air going into the alveoli has a lot of oxygen and does not have much carbon dioxide. The blood in the capillaries that surrounds the alveoli does not have much oxygen but has a lot of carbon dioxide in it. Only about 3% of oxygen diffuses into the blood from the alveoli. Carbon dioxide diffuses into the alveoli from the blood. Where does the rest of the oxygen go? About 97% of the oxygen moves into the red blood cells and then combines with hemoglobin, and this carries oxygen. When blood that has oxygen in it reaches the cells, the amount of oxygen is higher in the blood than in the cells. Where does the carbon dioxide go? Carbon dioxide dissolves in the cell and then moves into the blood. Some of it dissolves in the cell, and more carbon dioxide attaches to hemoglobin. Most of it reacts with water and forms carbonic acid. The blood now reaches the lungs, and carbon dioxide diffuses out of the capillaries into the alveoli, and then is exhaled and let out into the environment. So basically, internal respiration is when gases in the air that have already been drawn into the lungs by external respiration are exchanged with blood and tissues. Carbon dioxide is then removed from the blood and replaced with oxygen. Looks like you've mastered the overall function of internal respiration in the respiratory system. Excellent job! Thanks for watching, folks, and remember, never take breathing for granted, for it is critical for life.
Yeah, we walk through the door so accusing, their eyes like they have any right.
Shout out to the Scotty!